Do you watch thrillers?
Not very often, but yeah.
How many thrillers have you watched in the last year?
Depending on definition, say about two.
Do you prefer watching them at cinema or on TV?
TV.
Why do you prefer watching thrillers on the TV?
Because in the cinema, I just feel like it's more scary, and because they have that loud system, they have the lights, and they've got the huge screen. And I think at home you feel a lot more comfortable watching it, and you don't feel sort of on your edge so much. I guess the experience is better in the cinema, but it's not something I want.
Have you got any particular favourites, and if so, what are they?
Um, Not really, but I am a fan of the Final Destination ones.
Why do you watch thrillers?
I guess it's for entertainment, because just because it's film, and two, because you get that sort of suspense that you won't get in other films. You can't exactly go on Mean Girls. Oh, who will she be mean to? No, because it's a different thing. You get suspense for being you don't know what's going to happen, and as long as it's not predictable, it's good.
Do you think thrillers use unnecessary violence?
No, because it's the genre they go for. And I think people who go, oh, no, shouldn't use that sort of violence. You don't watch it. That's not your genre. So you don't watch it. They're aimed for other people, not you.
Have you watched any recent films of the genre? For example, The Depth, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, James Bond.
No.
Can you put in your own words what defines a thriller?
I guess my definition would be something that keeps you in suspense and keeps you sort of on the edge of your seat, wondering what's going to happen next. And you don't know, and as long as and you are honestly shocked when it does happen, and as long as that happens, it's a thriller.
Do you think there is any difference in the style and setting of thrillers produced in different countries?
I wouldn't know.
Have you any favourite writer or director to the genre?
Ian Rankin, or maybe Henning Mankell or Mankell. It's one or the other.
Do you watch thrillers?
I do occasionally when I'm in the mood for them. So I'm not a regular watcher of thrillers, but I do sometimes enjoy them.
How many thrillers have you watched in the last year?
That's difficult to say because sometimes I'll put the TV on and I'll just kind of channel flick, and if there's something starting I might sort of watch it, but I wasn't necessarily planning to watch it. But I do sometimes watch films on a DVD, so probably about once a month, I would say 12 in the last year.
Do you prefer watching them at cinema or on TV?
I probably wouldn't go to the cinema to watch a thriller, so I watch them on TV.
Why would you watch them on a TV?
Because it's convenient for me, because I have children, so I don't very often go out in the evening, and it's a nice way to relax, to just put a DVD on or the television, and I find it a good way to unwind in the evening.
Have you got any particular favourites, and if so, what are they?
On TV, my real favourite is Spooks.
Why do you watch thrillers?
I watch thrillers because I sometimes get a bit stressed out or a bit tired, and it's a really good way to escape from real life and just have a real sort of time where you're completely switched off.
Do you think thrillers use unnecessary violence?
No, I don't actually. I think that the violence is used to enhance the plot and the substance of the characters, so I quite enjoy a bit of violence in a thriller.
Have you watched any recent films of the genre, e.g. The Depth, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy?
Well, to be honest with you, because I don't really go and watch thrillers at the cinema, I haven't seen any really recent ones, but I do rent DVDs online, and the one I watched recently that I really enjoyed, which isn't that new, but it's one that I did watch on DVD recently, was Shutter Island. I really enjoyed it. I didn't sleep that night, but I enjoyed it.
Can you put in your own words what defines a thriller?
I think a thriller is a kind of mystery. There's something going on that maybe you don't know about, and there's a lot of action involved, a lot of twists and turns, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It keeps you tense, wanting to know what's going to happen.
Do you think there is any difference in the style and setting of thrillers produced in different countries?
Yes, I do. I think that possibly the American ones are more fast-moving, more violent, quick, whereas sometimes the British ones are a bit more subtle. I love a thriller where you really don't know what's going to happen, and they have to be pretty clever for me not to work out what's going on. So yes, I think there is a difference.
Have you any favourite writer or director of the genre?
I wouldn't really know the names of writers or directors of the genre because I'm not that into them. I don't know about a film, to be honest. I think, Spooks is my all-time favourite.
Do you watch thrillers?
I'm not an avid watcher of thrillers, but sometimes I do.
How many thrillers have you watched in the last year?
Oh, I don't know, probably about one.
Do you prefer watching them at the cinema or on TV?
I hardly ever go to the cinema anyway. I never really. It's got to be a really brilliant film, and anyway now you can see films at home, can't you? Everything that's on the cinema, you don't have to wait very long before you can have it on DVD, so I hardly ever go to the cinema.
Have you got any particular favourites, and if so, what are they?
To tell you the truth, at the moment I haven't watched anything very much at all. One that stays in my mind was the old version of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I haven't seen the new one, but it used to be on television, and that was a series, and that was quite exciting and thrilling and subtle, so I like that.
Why do you watch thrillers?
It's the suspense, I think. Well, I suppose I like to be thrilled, so it's the suspense often in a thriller that makes it so interesting. Just like the subtlety of the plot.
Do you think thrillers use unnecessary violence?
Probably some of them do, but I don't watch them.
Have you watched any recent films of the genre? Like, for example...
The nearest thing, and I don't know whether you'd call it a thriller, Wallander, I'd say. I sometimes watch that, and that's the one that I could say I've watched this year. I haven't watched every one of them that's been on, but unless there's something other more exciting on or more interesting to me, I might watch it. But Wallander I quite enjoyed.
What did you think of it?
It's quite dark, and he is quite dark and dreary and sad. It's a bit strange really, but interesting. The plot is interesting and quite subtle.
Can you put in your own words what defines a thriller?
I find that quite difficult really, but as I say, because they're called thrillers because they're supposed to thrill. So in what way are they supposed to thrill? I suppose you could say the suspense is one of the things about thrillers, so I think one requirement is suspense, and another is surprise, and also the interest of the plot, so that it's keeps you guessing, but at the same time isn't too ludicrous, or too obvious, or too silly. Something is quite subtle and realistic and convincing.
Yeah.
And then you get a surprise when you find out, but not too much of a surprise, because you want to be guessing at the same time.
Do you think there is a difference in the style and setting of thrillers produced in different countries?
I can't say in general. I mean, Wallander is not spy one, but it's very different, but I haven't watched so many that I can generalise in such a way. I haven't watched so many thrillers that I can come to that kind of judgment.
Have you any favourite writer or director of the genre?
Sorry, I'm not very good at remembering the authors' names. I can't remember who wrote the first Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but I thought that was excellent, whoever he was.
Do you watch thrillers?
I don't watch very many. No, they're not my favourite sort of film.
Why not?
When I go to the cinema, I like to go and watch something that's going to let me escape and I don't have to concentrate on very hard. And the problem with thrillers is you have to sometimes concentrate really hard and really know what is happening in the plot. And that's a bit like hard work to me. I go to the cinema to relax, and sometimes I find thrillers a bit hard going.
How many thrillers have you watched in the last year?
I've probably watched an average amount. I'm sure everybody watches them because there are so many different types. I don't like too much gore and blood and guts, and I don't like too much violence. So some thrillers are probably milder than others. And if there are mild ones, you know, more along the lines of a whodunit or more of the CSI sort of stuff, then I would watch those.
Do you prefer watching them at the cinema or on TV?
Films. Some films are nicer at the cinema, I think, when you don't know what's going to happen. But it's also sometimes really nice to relax with a DVD at home. About 50-50.
Have you got any particular favourites?
Not really, I'm afraid. No, not my favourite films.
Why do you watch thrillers?
Sometimes you get a film in any genre, I'd imagine, that everybody starts talking about, and then if everybody says something's really good, I'll go and watch it.
Do you think thrillers use unnecessary violence?
I don't think that happens with thrillers any more than any other film, any other type of film. But some thrillers do use too much violence, but so do some other films.
Have you watched any recent films of the genre?
No, I haven't really. No.
Can you put in your own words what defines a thriller?
There must have to be an element of suspense that has to carry on for quite a long time, and the plots seem to be quite complex with thrillers. So those are the two things that would probably define thrillers for me.
Okay. Do you think there is any difference in the style and setting of thrillers produced in different countries?
I don't know. American produced films tend to be more violent and dramatic than perhaps English produced films are. English ones tend to be much milder and more about a thought-provoking process rather than just what you see in front of you.
Yeah. Have you any favourite writer or director?
As far as thrillers are concerned, I don't know really. Not anybody in specific. I suppose things like Poirot and Miss Marple that were written by Agatha Christie. They're thrillers. And I like those. But I haven't really got a favourite film director that just directs thrillers. Although I like, Steven Spielberg and most of the good ones, and I'm sure they've all done some thrillers at some time.
Do you watch thrillers?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How many thrillers have you watched in the last year?
Well, I'm not quite sure really. I don't go to the cinema very often. I suppose I've watched some on television. Particularly, just thinking recently, I've watched Hidden. I expect that television would be my main source of thrillers watching, but maybe 3 or 4 in the last year.
Do you prefer watching them at the cinema or on TV?
I think I definitely prefer watching them on TV because I probably find on the big screen that would be a bit spooky, really. I think also I like to see more pleasant films at the cinema. Easier to watch.
Have you got any particular favourite thrillers, and if so, what are they?
I can't think of any favourite thriller really. I suppose I quite like Trial and Retribution, although that could be possibly crossover with crime genre. I quite enjoy that one, although it's quite violent.
Why do you watch thrillers?
I suppose that it's really, I find it quite entertaining. I think the on television, when it's a serial, you can really enjoy the tension from between week on week. And I think that's quite good. It gives you something to look forward to.
Do you think thrillers use unnecessary violence?
I suspect they do in films, in cinema, but I think I probably tend to avoid that at the cinema.
Have you watched any recent films of the genre? For example, The Debt, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Unstoppable?
No, I haven't actually. I haven't been to the cinema for a long time.
Can you put in your own words what defines a thriller?
I think a thriller has definitely got to have an element of suspense, and often they're quite complicated. And I think it's following that complicated plot line through. I think that's what makes a thriller.
Do you think there is any difference in the style and setting of thrillers produced in different countries?
Well, I suspect that, for example, thrillers produced in the States are less gritty, a bit more glamorised, and possibly use more gratuitous violence than thrillers produced in Europe. I think, actually, I thought of another one, possibly the Danish, again, crime crossover one, The Killing. They are quite gritty and quite, they don't, it's not particularly decorated, not glamorous in any way, but I suspect American US versions are.
Have you any favourite writer or director?
I think definitely I wouldn't. Oh, I suppose maybe Linda LaPlante, but otherwise I wouldn't know. Do you watch thrillers?
Yes, I believe I do.
About how many thrillers have you watched in the last year?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Maybe about 3 to 5.
Okay. Do you prefer watching them at the cinema or on TV?
Well, it's a mix, really. I mean, cinema's kind of better quality, yet you don't get TV series on at the cinema, so it's both. I mean, I prefer watching thriller films at the cinema. So,
have you got any particular favourites thrillers, and if so, what are they?
well, I quite like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and The Debt. I quite like them because they're sort of, they weren't modern. They were very based on a sort of behind the scenes of war.
Why do you enjoy thrillers particularly?
Why do I enjoy thrillers? Well, I like watching films where you're not scaring yourself silly, as in horrors, and you're not just watching them as in soaps or anything. That's probably not a very good example, but I like thrillers because thrillers are very catching, and I suppose that's why I like them, because when you start watching it, you can't tear your eyes away. No matter if it's a horror thriller or crime thriller, you just can't stop watching.
Do you think thrillers use unnecessary violence?
That is a good question. A lot of people think no. Seeing as I'm not a lot of people, I'm going to go with I think so, because at the end of the day, you can create a thriller with a low budget. You can create a thriller by not talking too much about one thing, making the audience wonder what's going on about that thing. You don't have to produce a gun and go, who's got the gun? Is it loaded?
Have you said, have you watched any other recent films of thrillers?
I have watched Unstoppable, which was 2011 released as well, which I didn't really realise. The Taking of Pelham 123, also a very good film.
Can you put in your own words what defines a thriller?
Yes. A thriller is a film or type of play or novel or anything like that that has you in suspense from start to beginning. The idea of a thriller is that you've got to carry on seeing it, watching it, listening to it, reading it, because it's got you hooked from page one or even scene one.
And do you think there is any difference in the style and setting of thrillers produced in different countries?
Yes. The style and setting. Style, by what I've been getting from other people, and this is probably a bit cheating, I've been told that American can be quite glamorous and stuff. I've found that American thrillers use a lot of guns. They're not afraid to pull out guns or anything like that. But however, thinking of when I first got into foreign thrillers, Wallander, this didn't use a lot of explosive or gun or anything. It even evolved around someone else's life. Yet it achieved the same kind of. In a way, it was more thrilling. It was, instead of thinking, oh, that van's going to blow up because you know it's going to blow up, or because you don't know what's going to happen with Wallander. One example was when someone was going along. It was a little intro. Someone was going along a road, and this kind of African statue thing was in the way, and something happened. You don't know what happened, and you're like, "What's with the statue?" Americans, you don't usually get that. You're just like, I mean, you can hardly go, "What's with the gun?" Really, can you? So, sorry, I'm still
have you any favourite writer or director?
Writer or director? I don't really have a favourite writer or director. However, I think quite thrilling. Not sure if thrilling as in action or actually thrilling. Chris Ryan, Andy McNab. They kind of wrote about real life situations. They are authors, and they can't. Andy McNab wrote about real life situations or near real life situations, and they just managed to. I can't really conclude this, but yes, I would possibly to an extent say Anthony Horowitz, but maybe not. I think he's more of a action writer, I'm guessing, or horror. So yeah. Do you watch thrillers?
I watch crime thrillers, yes, I do.
How many thrillers have you watched in the last year?
Probably 2 or 3, but they're series rather than just one-offs.
Do you prefer watching them at cinema or on TV?
On TV.
Have you got any particular favourite thrillers, and if so, what are they?
I like, as I said, I like crime thrillers, so I liked Wallander, and I quite like Poirot, but that was many years ago. I haven't watched Poirot for a long time, and I like the Scottish crime thriller, which I can't remember the name of. Taggart.
Why do you watch thrillers?
Because I like the suspense that they offer. The fact that they ask you they give you a fact in the beginning, and then you don't really know the answer to the query that's raised by that fact until the end of it.
Do you think thrillers use unnecessary violence?
Some do, but I think some, for instance, on The Killing, which was a thriller, Danish thriller, which is very good as well, they showed a lot of violence and they showed a lot of graphic detail of the crime, but I thought that was necessary for the plot. There are some thrillers that go over the top, but I tend not to watch those.
Have you watched any recent films of the genre?
No, I haven't, but I've watched some very long series like The Killing, which lasted 16 hours, over 16 episodes.
Can you put in your own words what defines a thriller?
I think a thriller is something that starts off with a crime and then, through various twists and turns, tries to solve that crime, but you follow the police in their investigation, or whoever's investigating, the private investigator, to resolve that crime, and it leads you down blind alleys, a bit like a maze, until you come up with the answer at the end, and it's about intuition and legwork.
Do you think there is any difference in the style and setting of thrillers produced in different countries?
I think the US tend to concentrate on technology and fantastic screens that sort of move around and resolve things, whereas the UK tends to look at pure police work, which is more methodical and driven by footwork. And the Danish and Swedish thrillers are more of the same, equivalent to the UK, but perhaps longer and more in real time than in the UK, which tend to be sped up so that they fit into a small number of episodes.
Have you any favourite writer or director?
No, I don't.